quick before we get into this. Summer's almost here. It's getting warmer. Maybe where you're at, it's getting a little stickier. And if that's the case, I got something for you. This is Chassis. You remember it. I've talked about it before. It's a powder that goes on your balls. You might be like, oh, is it sort of like that other powder that I've heard of that maybe I used back in the day? Kind of, except that powder you're probably thinking of is either meant for a baby or your feet, neither of which is your nuts. Chassis is meant for your nuts. It's got like a menthol thing happening, it wicks moisture away, and there's no talc, which you don't want for a powder for your nuts. This bottle right here is almost empty because I use it, and if you use it, leave a comment and tell others why it's nice, because they won't believe me, but they might believe you. You have nothing to gain. Now, enjoy this video. Good morning, folks, and hello to everyone who is joining us from Road and Track. I wrote a little piece about this for Road and Track as well, so if you're coming here from there, welcome. If you're going to go there from here, bon voyage. But here is a BMW M550i xDrive 2018, modified by DINAN. It has their S1 package as well as, typical for other DINAN cars, a host of other goodies. In fairness, I have not driven the regular M550i xDrive without the DINAN goodies, so it will be tough to distinguish modified from stock in certain cases. Nevertheless, I'm going to do the best I can, and the fact that I just recently did the outgoing M6 is helpful in this case. So you start with the M550i, which has a base price of $73,000. As tested, this one is $83,000, and might I just say, it doesn't feel like it's worth $83,000. With all the modifications on it, which is $14,000 worth of DINAN stuff, we're at $98,000. And while a year ago that may have seemed like sort of a good idea because there was no M5, now we have an all-wheel drive M5, which is a base price of $103,000. You can probably see where I'm going. Nevertheless, what this has is, here's the list. Here we go. DINANtronics Performance Tuner, $2,600. DINAN Free Flow Stainless Exhaust with black tips, and those are quad 4s. 4-inch tips, $2,500. High Flow Mid Pipe, $500. So this has $5,600 worth of engine tuning stuff, and that is good for, if I am not mistaken, 606 horsepower and 635 pound-feet of torque, which, yes, is actually the same horsepower and more torque than the current generation, the newest M5. This also has the DINAN Performance Spring Set and the Ride Quality Handling Kit, so only $448 worth of suspension goodies. It then has the standard adaptive suspension from the factory. It has the DINAN wheels, 20-inch wheels with 265 fronts and 295 rears. That's $6,500. It then has a bunch of carbon stuff on it, which I assure you do not want. That is $1,432. Total, $98,000. So, 600 horsepower in an otherwise stock M550i. Now, this, time to go for a drive. Alright, manual mode, and I have my suspension and chassis settings in adaptive, which should adjust for the conditions. I've chosen a bumpy road because I feel that this car, one of the things it does well is handle bumps. So at the time DINAN put this car out, just like the 240 I drove, 2 Series I drove before it, 235i, whatever that was, before the M2 came out, you know, they fill the gap, right? So this new 5 Series comes out, and before the M5 is here, for the performance people, watch this bump. Whoa! Haha! Kept the grip, even though my ass came off the seat. DINAN fills that gap, and then the M car arrives and pretty much puts their car out to pasture. And that's sort of what has happened here. This car has 8,400 miles on it, and it has made the rounds. But now the M5 is out with all-wheel drive and new boring styling. So where does that leave this? I don't know. I don't really know. The 550 weighs 100 pounds less than the old M5, even with all-wheel drive. So they've really lightened it up. And I'm not exactly pleased to note that I can tell that they've lightened it up. The doors don't have some of their heft anymore. Some of these window switches feel really light and cheap. And, well, boy, can I not sit behind a Camry. So, are they gonna... Yes. Yes! It's all glorious. Wow, they really hit that yump with some vigor. Thank you, Camry. It feels cheaper than the last 5 Series and 6 Series. It does also remind me of the fact that I haven't driven a non-M5 Series in like 10 years. And God, are they expensive and bland to drive. Yes, you have as much power, and in fact, even a little bit more power than the BMW M5, but you have the 8-speed automatic gearbox, not the dual clutch, and that's like kind of your point of interaction with the engine. Your feet on the pedals, and then your hands on the gearbox, and you know, it's a fine automatic. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not broken. It's not terrible. It's responsive, but it's not that dual clutch, which has the snappy motorsport feel to it. It's the rest of the car, right? These seats are like kind of flat. Here's what it's good at. This 5th gear. Wow. That was very fast. And this car is very, very fast. Wow. It covers ground at, you know, roughly the same rate as the M5. Car and Driver tested this stock at 0 to 60 in 3.7. The new M5 in theory does 3.1 to 60. And this should be as fast or faster than that from 0 to 60. But what you don't get is that nice hunkered down motorsport feeling. This still, yeah, it takes bumps well, but it's still just, it's so floaty and wafty. If you live somewhere with terrible roads, okay, and if you're just ever driving on really bumpy highways, okay. But as fast as it is, and it is fast, it's very fast. Now that we know what we know about the market, the fact that the new M5 is out and it has a base price of $103,000, is that worth the premium over the DINAN M550i? Wow, a car burned to the ground right there. That was the carcass. Yeah, it is. There's some other stuff that I'm not really into about this car in general that has nothing to do with the DINAN stuff, but I need to flip around because I don't want to follow whatever that black car was. You might remember when I had the M6 that I complained about the connectivity with my phone. It would disconnect, it would start my like podcasts over, and it would do weird stuff with the GPS. Oh, good turning radius though. Kudos for the turning radius. This one, the newer one, has had the same connectivity issues. I don't get it. What is that? That was very fast. And I'll tell you what, for the $2,400 exhaust, doesn't really sound like much. Now, the car could be completely silent stock for all I know, and it could sound good on the outside when I do the flyby shots, but in here you don't get it. And also, you need to recognize that the M5 comes with bigger brakes than this for a reason, and you could get these brakes pretty hot pretty quick, I think, if you really wanted to. I don't know. The 5 Series isn't special. Can you imagine spending $100,000 on a 5 Series that isn't an M car? Can you imagine spending $90,000 on a 5 Series that isn't an M car? Because, like, DINAN has done a good job with this engine tune. You know, BMW says this makes 456 horsepower out of the box. I think it's more like 500 out of the box. And DINAN gives you 100 horsepower and a grip of torque. I think it's 100 horsepower and 100 torque for $5,000. And that's nice. But you could probably skip the exhaust unless it's crucial to the package. Because that, you know, $5,000 is 5% maybe, 7-8% additional over the cost of your 550 for that extra power. Sure, you don't need the wheels. I don't think the suspension does much. I mean, it lowers it a little bit, but you know, it doesn't feel like it's sportier or firmer. The steering certainly doesn't feel like M steering. The brakes don't feel like M brakes. You basically got a big highway missile, and that's okay. It is what it is. But if you're really serious about performance driving and you're not talking about a morning Autobahn commute, I would say just get the M5. Now, when DINAN has an M5, we can revisit this all over again. It's very fast. It's just not fun. For $100,000, it needs to be fast and it needs to be fun. It can't just be fast. Or it needs to be fast and it needs to be exceptionally comfortable. It needs to go the other way. It has to be, for $100,000, it needs to be exceptional in some way. And this just feels like a super fast 5 Series. Nothing really special about a 5 Series. But I'd like to say thank you to DINAN for the car. I do appreciate it. And I would like to say that their modifications feel like they do add the power that they claim to add. So good job there. And I'd like to thank you for watching. And I hope the rest of you have a great day. And we'll revisit this when DINAN builds an M5, which should be pretty soon. So thanks and good day.